Hello, everybody. My name is Max, and welcome to another B2 First speaking lesson. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at all the languages necessary for part two. We're going to learn what kind of words you can use, what kind of sentences you can use, how you can start your description. Of course, you have to compare in this part, as we talked about in the previous video. I'm going to give you so many languages that you can use to compare the pictures, how you can talk about the similarities, differences, how you can clarify which picture you're talking, and all this stuff together. So without any hesitation, let's begin. All right, so let's start with useful languages for this part two of this speaking. Now, you can start your, let's say, comparison by saying which picture you're talking about. For example, sometimes the pictures can be one on the top, another one the bottom, or left and right. So based on where the pictures are, you can just choose one of these languages. For example, you can say the top picture shows blah, 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 blah. Or after that, you can say in the other picture or in the other photo, there is, whatever that you want, you can just add it. For example, the top photo or top picture shows a family having a dinner together. Whereas in the other picture, there are, I don't know, some people, for example, enjoying their time with their friends or cooking in the kitchen or something like that. And you can also use the other one, which is in the one below, it looks as if this is a speculation, and also you're talking about the picture in details. For example, in the one below, it looks as if the man is trying to, for example, play the guitar, but he doesn't know how to do it, and he's trying to ask for help. I'm just saying, I don't know. The next one, both pictures show, this is a very good language. When you're saying both pictures show blah, 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 you're talking here about similarities, okay? You're talking what things are similar. Both pictures, for example, show families enjoying their time, spending time together, having dinner, or both pictures show people doing something in a hurry, or both pictures show people traveling by different means of transportation, blah, 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 blah. In both photos, there are, again, this is the same as the previous one. You're talking about the similarities. In both pictures or photos, there are blah, 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 group of people doing different activities. So based on the picture, you can just talk about it, whatever that is happening in both pictures. In both pictures, there are some people having fun together. There are, or there is, you don't need to say always there are, you can also say there is, or if you want to make it plural, you can say there are. Now, you can also use these languages to describe similarities and differences. Now, these languages are really useful. I highly recommend writing them down. And when you're trying to do your exercise, when you're practicing, recording your voice, put these words in front of yourself and try to use them. Okay, the more you use them, the better you can just remember and use them in the future. So put them in front of yourself, all the languages that you're learning in this course for part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever we are saying, try to put them in front of yourself. Whenever you're practicing, try to use them. Remember, if you do this for 20 times, for 10 times, this language will go there in your mind, and you're going to produce it without thinking. So you don't need to see it anymore after doing it 10 times using it. So you know what to say, you know the language. So you don't need a lot of languages in order to pass B2. Just a couple of languages, putting them together and using your own knowledge based on the other steps that I'm telling you, put them together and 100% you pass this. Basically, I'm telling you what to say, which you don't need anything more. I'm telling you what to do, what to say, what words use, what languages use, and just if you can do them together and step by step, couple of times practicing them, just passing B2 is like a cake, piece of cake. You're gonna just pass it easily. Now, let's see what are the ways that we can describe similarities and differences. For example, we can say this picture shows blah, 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 but the other one, or but that one shows blah, 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 blah. For example, this picture shows a family having dinner together, but the other one shows a bunch of teenagers playing soccer. Or in both pictures, there is something, though in this one, blah, 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 blah. So you say one similarity about both pictures, and then you focus on one picture and talk about something that is different in this picture. So you can use this language. One difference between the pictures is that now you can talk about the difference here. For example, you can talk about differences in places, the activities they're doing, about those three, if you remember, who, what, where. You can just talk about those differences. For example, one difference between the pictures is that here is summer, the other one is winter, or people are wearing costume here. On the other picture, people are for example, wearing casual clothes. In one respect, the pictures are quite similar because now here you can talk about the similarities. For example, again, you can use those who, where, what as well. The activities, for example, in one respect, the pictures are quite similar because people are using their phones and trying to communicate with their loved ones. Or the two situations are completely different because one picture shows blah, 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 and the other picture shows another thing. So again, here you can talk about the differences. Or they are similar in that they both show blah, 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 blah. Again, here you can talk about similarities. The next one, the biggest difference between them is that this one shows family enjoying time together, but the other one shows a bunch of teenagers, blah, 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 blah. So you see, you can just put those things that I told you in these sentences, and easily you can describe the similarities and differences. Remember, if you use 2 or 3 of these languages, each of them, you can just put at least 5 to 6 seconds to say this. So if you can use 3 or 4 of them, it's going to be 15 or 20 seconds. Just using these words and adding like 10 seconds more of who, what, where, and then you can move to the question. You can also answer the question with these languages. You can just put the question into this, put the answer of the question into these sentences and answer the question with them. Also, you can compare with other languages. For example, I can say, this looks far more blah, 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 blah than that. For example, this looks far more, for example, interesting than that. First, you have to create what you're talking. What is this? For example, you're talking about the activity they're doing. Or the blah, blah, blah in this picture look much more blah, blah, blah than those. So again, you have to create the concept before this. You have to talk about the situation beforehand and then using this sentence. These are good languages to answer the question with them. The question. So you're saying something about the question. For example, it says, which picture shows people doing something in a hurry? For example, the man on the left in this picture look much more active than those people on the other picture. Or what's happening in this picture is just as crazy as what's going on there, or as beautiful as what's going on. So you can use some kind of an adjective here. Whatever you like, you can put here. Whatever adjective you want, you can put it, but based on the picture. Here you're talking about, for example, the similarity again. Then the next one, again, you can answer the question with this one as well. For example, doing exercise like that isn't so helpful as the other person doing that, for example, specific type of exercise. For example, one person is doing it pretty good, one person is doing it really bad. So you can just say something like that. Or doing that activity like that isn't so effective as doing it with, for example, that way. Instead of doing, you can just say the action. Running like that isn't so effective as doing, or exercising like that. So You cannot just, you don't need to just say doing. You can just put something else here and then continue. Or these people are blah, 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 a lot more blah, blah, blah than those are. For example, here you can use talking about differences. These people are like really active or active a lot more than those, for example, people. So you can somehow talk about the, let's say, differences here. Or of course, we have a lot of examples with all these phrases, so don't worry. Right now, I just, because I don't have the picture, so probably I don't have exact sentence for you, but in the next video, which we're going to talk about, I'm going to put these languages in a real life. We're going to have pictures and we're going to put these languages there. Here, I'm just explaining how you can use them. So I'm not going to give you tons of examples with them because we need the picture, we need the question so that you can see them in a real example, how you can use these languages in a real example. And it's not very difficult to use these expressions in a real examples. Once you know how to use them, you can just try a couple of times with the examples using these languages inside of your sentences. Try to have a checklist when you're practicing. Did I use comparing languages? Did I speculate? Did I, for example, talked about this topic? Did I answer the question? Have a very small checklist next to yourself when you finished recording your voice for a minute, putting it and listen to it and have your checklist. If you didn't do something, record again and try to do it. Do it a couple of times, and honestly, it's not going to be that difficult. Then useful languages referring to your opinion. Again, maybe the question is asking about your opinion, something that you might need to say. Mostly we say that our opinion because you are not sure, you think something. So instead of saying I think all the time, we can also use a lot of other examples, like in my opinion, I'd say that, well, I think, it seems to me, well, my own feeling is that, I'm convinced that, my own view is that, and blah, 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 blah. And you can move on and just talk more about your opinion, because mostly in some parts, the question is asking about your opinion. So whenever the question is like this, use this and in order to answer the question. And then you can use also the languages of comparing to put it next to this opinion and make your answers look fantastic. Now, adding points of similarity and differences. Again, you said one similarity or difference, you want to add more, so you can use other things. For example, you can say another similarity or difference is that these people are doing blah, 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 blah. Or, and something else that's different is, again, these are good languages you can use in order to extend. You said, for example, something and it took you like 10 seconds. You have 20 seconds left to talk more about that who, what, where. So what can I do? Just use these languages to add more similarities and differences so that you can come up for like 30 seconds talking, then moving to the question. Another thing that's not quite the same is blah, 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 blah. They also differ in that they're alike in another way, in that, again, after these words, you can just talk about the similarity, you can talk about the differences, whatever that you feel like it's necessary about the picture, you can just use these languages to add more points of similarity and differences, and easily you can come up with 30 seconds of time so that you can move to the question and answer the question for 30 seconds. Now, let's take a look at some examples in this picture. Imagine you have to compare these photos with some of those languages that we talked about. Of course, I put in more languages as well. For example, it shows people, for example, traveling with different means of transportation. So you can say, for example, one thing you can say is the man in the second photo, which is this one, looks far more bored than the woman in the first picture. So you see, I just compared the pictures. I didn't describe them. I compared them using a very good language. Far more, a lot more. Far more means a lot more, but using a good language. A lot is something that everybody can use. Far more is something that not everybody use that. So you will get more points if they see that you're using better vocabulary. Or the train journey in the first picture looks nowhere near as stressful as the road journey in the second picture. Nowhere near as stressful as. So you see, that's a very good language to use. You can use it to describe, basically to compare any picture. You can say this blah, 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 blah picture, the first one, looks nowhere near as blah, 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 blah as the second picture. So based on the picture, put the pictures in front of yourself in the future and try to just create your own sentence using this beautiful sentence. The man in the second picture doesn't look as happy as the one in the first picture. Yeah, he looks pretty bored. Or the more the man sits in traffic, the more annoyed he'll probably get. Again, look, I'm not sure. He'll probably get. If you're sure, probably you're going to lose point. Why? Because you don't know this, just speculating. So it's important to speculate. Or traveling by car isn't quite as comfortable as traveling by train. Again, speculation. The man in the car will probably arrive much later than he wanted to. Again, here I'm just comparing the languages using very good comparative adjectives, using very good languages to compare the pictures. Now, you don't need to say all of them. Basically, I just have to say a couple of them in order to compare the pictures, and using all the other languages in the previous slides that we talked about, just like this, putting it in front of yourself, look at the pictures and try to find similarities and differences. You don't need to just look at the question at first when you're finding similarities and differences. Just try to find 5 similarities, 5 differences using those languages. Put those languages in front of yourself, look at the pictures, find similarities and differences using those languages. Okay, do this, do this, do this. Do this for 10 times and you see how easy you can create sentences and you can compare the pictures with these languages just like this. Remember, if you use something like this in the exam, wow, the examiner will love it. Getting C1 with these expressions is inevitable. You can get it without any problem. Now, as a practice, what I want you to do is try to practice now. Look at these pictures. They show people doing different activities. Now, what I want you to do is also you have some languages here, comparing, contrasting, and adding points. Again, more languages I put here. I want you to just practice, compare the pictures and saying what might attract people doing these activities by using the words on the top of the page. You can also use these words here. If you don't, you can use also the words that we talked about, like in the previous slides. You can also use those words to compare the pictures and saying what might attract people doing these activities. For example, the first picture, you can talk about the having fun going to the concert. The second one, for example, doing some kind of, for example, like yoga or something that they're doing, and you can talk about it, or whatever dance that they're practicing or exercise that you're doing. So you can speculate. If you're not sure, like me, what they're doing, you can speculate. You're not sure, so don't say 100% sure, because it might not be the thing that we're saying. So speculation is okay. As long as you're speculating, it's not going to be wrong, because you're not sure and you're just trying to say and talk about the possibilities, and probably you're going to get a good mark whenever you are saying something like this. You're speculating. But remember, your speculation should not be so crazy that is not related to the picture. I'm saying talk about possibilities, but not possibilities that are 100% unlikely about the picture. So it should be reasonable. Okay, you cannot talk, for example, they're skydiving. Probably it seems like they're skydiving. Oh, what are you talking about? They're not jumping out of a plane. So that you said, Max, I'm talking about possibilities. No, it's not a possibility. It's 100% not possible to do that in this picture. So it should be related, but at least something that makes sense But yeah, it's okay if it's wrong. Probably you're not going to lose point as long as I mentioned, you're not saying you're skydiving. So you're going to get some points. Okay, now try to practice. And in the next video, what we're going to do in the next lesson, we're going to take a look at least 10 real examples like this. And we're going to put all those sentences, all those expressions that we learned into a real example. We're going to take a look at the questions. We'll also have a lot of audio files so you can listen, you can read the scripts and everything I put in the next lesson. So you can learn and you can practice the same way that we're going to practice for the next lesson. All right, so have a great time. See you in the next lesson.